Good afternoon. There are two important principles that I would like to draw to your attention before we go to the study of the fourth trumpet. And that is the first thing, that the book of Revelation, although it talks about prophetic things, pointing into the future, it is also a book that is a revelation, a revealing of something that is actually taking place now. Let me explain. In Revelation chapter 1, I read in verse 19, where Jesus says to John, "Write therefore what you have seen, what is now, and what will take place later." So we see that although the book is prophetic, it's also exposing what is happening at this time. And to better understand this, I want to take you to 2 Peter chapter 3. Now, in chapter 3, Peter is talking about events that are going to take place before Jesus comes. And then he writes this in verse 3. "First of all, you must understand that in the last days scoffers will come, scoffing and following their own evil desires." So you see, Peter is explaining the attitude of people in the present time of the future. So let me look at Revelation chapter 4 to make this clearer. I read there that Jesus says to him, "Come up here." This is in verse 1. "And I will show you what must take place after this." So we find that Jesus revealed something that is taking place in the present time, and then he's also revealing something that is taking place in the future. Now this was important because although we are discussing prophetic word, we must understand that this is revealing to us a present time experience. The second thing that I wanted to draw your attention to was that a picture paints 1,000 words. And one of the things I've discovered as I've used mind mapping to try and discuss and find out what these prophecies are all about, and using Revelation now revealed, I find that you have to go into an in-depth study of each of the items. And in these presentations I'm giving to you, I'm just briefly touching on certain aspects that one can draw out of these prophecies that we are studying. Let's get into our study for today. In Revelation chapter 8, verse 12, I read this. "The fourth angel sounded his trumpet, and a third of the sun was struck, a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them turned dark. A third of the day was without light, and also a third of the night." Quite simple. We have at the blowing of this trumpet that we have a sun, and a third of the sun turns dark. We have the moon, and a third of the moon turns dark. Then we have a day, and a third of the day turns dark. And then we have night, and a third of the night is dark. And then we have stars, and a third of the stars are dark. Quite simple in the way in which the picture is painted. But in order to understand this better, I felt that we need to go back and understand certain things that are very important. And today I want to draw your attention to, for example, Joel chapter 3, verse 14. When we look at these different items, one of the conclusions that I've drawn from this is from verse 14. It says, "Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision. For the day of the Lord is near in the valley of decision." And then it says this, "And the sun and moon will be darkened, and the stars no longer shine." So our attention is drawn to the fact that this revelation is bringing to us an understanding that we are, as people who are living on planet Earth, finding ourselves to be in a place of decision making. It is Armageddon, the battle for the soul. We are in Jacob's wrestle. This is God's final wrestle match with us, and it's his final call. We are either going to be pickled or preserved. This is very clear as I look at this prophecy. And then I want to draw your attention to Genesis chapter 1. And in Genesis chapter 1, we find actually the literal creation of these different items. And I want to read it to you because it tells us why God did this. For example, in verse 14 it says, "And God said, let there be light in the expanse of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve for signs to mark seasons and days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. Then it says further, "And God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the expanse of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good, and there was evening and there was morning, the fourth day." So when we look at the act of creation, we find out that the purpose of the sun, moon, and the stars, and the reason why we have light and day, is clearly given there. The sun is to govern the day, the moon was to govern the night, and the stars was to give us direction, give us a place in the universe. The light of the sun was to be a light to our feet. The darkness was to be, again, shrouding what is going on. So I want you to notice very important information. Something else that also comes out if you read Acts chapter 7 verse 42, and then I actually want to draw your attention to Deuteronomy, and we're going to read there chapter 4 verse 19. It says this, and I want to read it. It says, "And when you look up to the sky and see the sun, the moon, and the stars, all the heavenly array, do not be enticed into bowing down to them and worshipping things the Lord your God has apportioned to all the nations under the sun." Then it says down in verse 29, "But if from there you seek the Lord your God, you will find him if you look for him with all your heart and with all your soul." So I want to draw your attention today to three things that I discover, and we're going to talk about this again tomorrow. That the purpose of the sun and the moon was to give governance, to give us an understanding why we have light, and the moon was to govern the evening. The stars were placed there so that we would find direction. Then the interesting thing is that we find as we look at this study that we are in the valley of decision. And one of the things that we must be careful of as we look at these things is that we don't make them objects of worship. Tomorrow, dear friends, I'm going to give you what I have found out to be the interpretation of the fourth trumpet. May God bless you.